will pass the mic over to you now, Morten, and I can see that you are sharing your screen.
Yes, and
Great.
Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm just following up from Thomas. I will focus mostly on the demonstration, but just want to land in briefly here on just a few slides. I normally use this slide initially to talk about digitalization and AI. Everybody that has been in any digitalization is always doing it analog. I find it sort of a paradox that every time we want to digitize something, we just move to the analog world. I believe we should move into the digital world. If it is so smart that all our users should use it, why don't we do it ourselves? And I think this is what DCR is about to some extent. We are trying to do it digitally. So basically, just briefly about DCR, Thomas mentioned it briefly. We were founded 4 years ago. We have about 30 customers today. We are basically sort of born out of the AI world. I think the AI terminology that we're using is called declarative AI, which we are based on, but we also use other type of AI, such as natural language processing for understanding law text. We're also doing process mining, which could be translated into explainable AI. Also, as Thomas mentioned this already, just to make this one a little smaller. So basically, the way we create IT systems today is basically having these workshops, a lot of documents, a lot of documentation in various systems. At one point in time, we end up coding something in some language, and eventually the users gets it. Even if we are agile, it often takes 9 months to probably 18 months or even longer. And for some reason, we call it agile. For me, agile is something that happens either tomorrow or not, or at least not later than next week. So that's agile. Something that happens in a year is not agile to me, but that's my perception on it. And I think the reason comes from the fact that we are doing the whole cycle mostly analog, of course, with a lot of digital tools to help us, but the process is broken from sort of all the way through. So basically what we're proposing is a new way to focus on digitalization, where we basically, if you imagine having the text marked up as a DCR graph, once you have expressed the actions and the rules of the DCR graph, you have in fact a true no-code solution, meaning, and with no-code, I mean, you don't need to write one single line of code. You actually have a solution on the right side that you can actually use. And there are many benefits of that. Of course, it's agile in the way that you can create it faster, you can adopt it faster, but there's also a huge benefit that once you start analyzing on the data, the artifacts you're analyzing from the logs are actually the artifacts from your models, not from the implementations, which are often different. So you have to sort of reverse engineer what did the developer do, which cannot be recommended, as you can make mistakes and it can be hard to sort of figure out what can be done. So basically, just as an example, in January, I unfortunately caught the corona, like most of the Danes got this. And then when you get this, you basically have to read an instruction. And the Danish Association of the Danish Association that creates these documents create a document that is 11 pages long. And you actually have to read that document. And as I was sick, I could sit at home and read the document. It probably took 4 or 5 hours to understand what to do. And after I have read that document, I said, this is stupid, right? Why do every Dane, I think 2 million Danes has caught corona, why do we have to spend so much time? You know, we're sick and now we have to read a long document. So what I created was, I actually created a process mapping the document into the model here. That's basically what I did. Mapping the model was easy, took a couple of hours. Once I had used the 4 or 5 hours to read all the document, I could actually create the model quite fast. Once I had that model, what I actually had is actually this. I'm gonna just start the video so you can see it very briefly. So basically what it does is that it basically takes me through reading the document and I enter some data. And of course, what I show you here, I don't show you everything, but I show you one example case run of what could happen if I read that document based on my position. And it even, as you can see here, it even tells me when should I have the first and the follow-up PCR test at that time. And basically I could do this in a few hours. And then I wondered, how come that they didn't do that. You know, they created a Corona app that actually won the digitalization prize, but they didn't actually do this one. And I think it comes to the fact that they know that digitalization takes 9 to 18 months. So, you know, as these rules changes a lot, and they cannot do it. You know, the way you develop software is that you have to have a firm and well-defined requirement specification, and then you, 9 to 18 months later, will get a solution. However, that does not work sort of in the real world, because things changes, work practices changes, we get smarter, we get more efficient, law changes, regulation changes. So we need to be able to adopt much faster, which basically bring me into sort of, so what we're trying to do is basically in sort of a mini universe to convert from these long PDF description of how people have to behave in certain situations. I think in the financial industry, you call them standard operating procedures. In other industries, they have different names. But basically, instead of asking people to read these documents, which takes a long time, you basically provide them with an online document that actually do exactly the same. And of course, this has a lot of benefits. And of course, this is just sort of a small example of digitalization from the model. You can even take it sort of to the next level and imagine having sort of an anti-money laundering process. You might imagine, just explain the process. Thomas also had it here. You might explain what's happening here. So basically, we have a fraud detection system. These systems already sort of exist in the bank that monitor high-risk customers. And imagine that this fraud detection system finds out something. Then, you know, it triggers something and captures some data. And this data we can describe here in the process. What I can then do is that I can then describe what should happen in the process. Let me just go out of PowerPoint here and just take you into the process. It's not here, it is here. So basically, this is the process you see now. Just so you can see it's basically online. I can actually move things around here. So this is actually a digital model of the process. And basically, when you sort of, when the fraud detection detects a situation, you should actually handle the case. The caseworker should do something and the customer should do something. And the challenge is this, that depending, there are many potential problems here, because the cause of this detection could be many different things. It could be a trivial thing and be a complex thing. And the information that you have to provide can also be complex. So, you know, it's not a straight through flow. If it was straight through, we would already have automated it. There might even be follow-ups. So basically what we're doing, instead of mining or sort of modeling the flow, what we're modeling are the rules. So basically the rule says that whenever we sort of detect something, we must sort of do something here. And then both the caseworker as well as the customer must do something. And this is what we have modeled. And basically, I can run this model in a system, and this is what I'm going to show you now. So basically, imagine, and sorry about this being in Danish, but I can have this process. So I'm going to find this process model that I just had here. So I can just do a test here, see the Copenhagen Fintech demo. So I can just do this now. So what I do now is that I'm actually starting to execute this process. The first thing is, of course, is capturing the data from this sort of fraud detection system. Of course, this will be done through an API, but as I don't have a fraud detection system here, I have to sort of simulate it. It's a big amount of money we receive from hackers. Let us do this, Hackers Incorporated, and we received it yesterday. Click here. So basically, now we have started the process. Why does this? I can't find my button because it's sitting here. Move it. So now I can click submit. And basically, when I submit, I have received sort of the data from the fraud detection system in the process. Then I can do this bank customer dialogue. And of course, the challenge is, if I could get the customers to log into this system, it would be easy. But unfortunately, that's not always so easy. But what if the system automatically could send me an email? So, and as the bank knows the customer's email, they could probably send them a link either through email, or maybe even they could just sort of put the link in a message in the NetBank solution so the customer could click it. Then what happens when I receive that mail? I'm going to show you here. I received the mail. So now I have a mail here. when I click this link here, it basically takes me to a public version of that solution where I can basically sort of respond to the sort of request from the bank. And basically, I can set here, so that they are requesting, why did I receive whatever fund? It didn't show me the fund. I could have done that, but I didn't do that here. But I sold my car, and then I could sort of imagine I had a picture of it. So I just have a picture of this one, just upload, just take my own profile image. Of course, it's a little bit stupid, but basically, so what I've done now is that I've actually uploaded this information. So I can go back to this list, to this here, the case is being updated. So now I can now handle the case as a caseworker and decide what to do. So in the decision, I could either say I would like to accept the information, the documentation that has been sent by the customer, then I will probably finalize the case. I could also decide to say I need additional information. And in order to explain you what happens then, I have to go back to the model so you can see it. So if I say that I need additional information, it will basically force the upload to happen again, which eventually would mean I would receive a new email with more details. So in this way, the process, instead of modeling the flow that you normally do, what I'm modeling here are the rules to say, if I need more information, even after the 10th time I have received information, it will keep on sort of requiring the customer to upload new information as they will get notification. Of course, if I accept the documentations, basically this will be completed. So the case is completed. So basically what I've shown you here is basically digitalization of a model. I'm going to hide the rules because sometimes it makes it a little difficult to see it. So move this one up here. So basically, this is a digital model of an anti-money laundering process that the bank caseworker and the customer has to handle mutually with all the rules and all the variations. And there are many different ways this can be done. The benefit of this is that once you've done the model, you have actually programmed everything, because you can actually execute this straight sort of in any in various IT systems, such as it was on sort of Thomas's slide, such as KMD Workzone. It could be in sort of an open source platform that we have provided called DCR Open Case Manager, or in other tools. So there are various ways to do this, and we could also build it in with various IT infrastructures that you already have in place. So just skipping back to the presentation here, I actually put all the examples here. I'm going to share the slide later on. Thomas also mentioned this about process mining, and I think the benefit of such a no-code platform is that process mining and the accuracy from process mining is much more valuable, because the logs that you get is actually the same logs as the process you modeled, because you didn't have a programmer to program the process after you modeled it. So that makes it easier. So basically, we can help you with getting started with AI in several manners. First of all, you can, of course, use process mining to find your processes. If you have, which I'm sure you have, a sort of huge IT system with many logs, we could actually extract these logs to actually create these process models as a start. So instead of inviting the users into sort of a classical brown paper exercise where they have to do everything from scratch, you do this first, and then you invite them in and say, hey, we found this process. Does this make sense for you? And of course, they will say yes to something and no to something else. So it will be a much more efficient and a much more relevant process for the caseworkers. And most of all, it will be digital from the start, which I think is important. Then, of course, you can model your processes. The model coming out of the sort of mining exercise can be leveraged and be extended. So you can actually model all your KYC, AML, and ODD sort of processes using the declarative AI of the DCR semantics. And then finally, you can digitize your processes using our sort of the true no-code platform in a system like I just showed you. And you know, the way we market and sell these systems depend on your current situation. So what we typically do is that we typically integrate this together with you in various IT systems you already have. We can also provide such a solution hosted in the cloud if you would like, but it basically depends on your sort of on your preferred IT infrastructure. And as we know, there are many different ways to solve this. It's hard to come up with a one-size-fits-all solution. So what we're trying to do is to accommodate this into whatever platform you already have. So that ends my presentation. So I wonder if there are questions or comments.
Great. Thanks, Morten. If anyone has any questions for Morten, feel free to let us know. I can say on my side, I also had Corona in December, and I would have really appreciated having this tool instead of having to go on the website and read and call them and everything. This would have really saved my life. So I can really see a very big use case for what you're doing, Morten. Is there, maybe I guess to sort of spark something on, are there specific sort of subsectors that you think within fintech that this would be really useful for? Like I'm guessing insurance tech and something beyond. Yeah.
Yeah, sort of. I think it's very applicable in all processes where they're humans.
Mm-hmm.
So where there's interaction, like in this AML example, where you basically sort of you have to provide some information, but somebody has to review it, because we don't know what is the right information in all situations. Of course, you could imagine having an AI robot looking at an image to say, is this a true document? But it's hard. So the way I foresee the future is that initially you will facilitate the process by humans, and then you would at some point put in robots to replace some of the work. So maybe the robot scans a document, come up with a probability. That we say that if the probability is very high, we just allow it to go through. But initially we don't do it, but at some point in time we might allow it, right? So it is like the caseworker and the bank and sort of the business is in control of when to do what. And I think so as humans, we have to be sort of taking along this process. It cannot happen in sort of giant steps. It has to happen in small steps so we understand what's going on. So all kind of processes where the humans involved. And just as a sort of curiosity, I just finalized a KYC in the bank, and it took, and I find this amazing, it took 3 months to become KYC to finalize the process. And I know, or I don't know, of course, but I doubt that a caseworker has sitting in the bank with my case for 3 months. I actually doubt that. So maybe it took a day, right? So what on earth happened in these 3 months? And I think what happened was that facilitation, sort of, when you hand over the case from one to another, is broken. So the case handled between two chairs many, many times in the process. That's why it takes 3 months. And of course, as a customer, having a 3 month onboarding time is, well, it's not the smartest thing.
No, it's a really long time.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's real life. And I don't want to mention the bank, but I can tell it's like it's a top 10 bank in Denmark, so it's not a small one. So
yeah,